All right, let's dive into a really fascinating concept today from author Alina Chamberlain, all about the strategic art of touch. We're going to explore this idea that not all physical contact is the same, and that certain kinds of touches can build a connection that is uniquely deep and, well, totally exclusive.
So, is all touch created equal? The short answer? Absolutely not. We tend to think of touch pretty broadly. A hug here, a kiss there, maybe holding hands. But what we're breaking down here is how a much more intentional approach could, in theory, create a whole new physical language just between the two of you.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. On the left, you've got what the source calls social touch. This is the stuff that's fine out in the open. But on the right, those are the non-social zones. These are the more private, intimate spots that this theory says are the secret to creating an exclusive, powerful physical bond. So why the big deal about these so-called non-social zones? It's all about moving past just casual affection. The idea is to create a private, powerful form of communication that is reserved only, and I mean only, for you and him.
So the goal here is way bigger than just a nice feeling in the moment. We're talking about building a deep, subconscious connection. The idea is to use touch to basically create a neurological shortcut, one that makes your very presence linked with comfort, a sense of belonging, and pure desire.
To really get how this is supposed to work, we've got to talk about the main idea here, somatic anchoring. Now, this isn't just a made-up term. It actually has its roots in a specific field of psychology.
So what is that exactly? Well, it comes from this field called neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. And an anchor is just any kind of trigger that brings up a specific feeling. So, in this context, a specific repeated touch becomes the anchor, and the emotion it's designed to bring up is all about intimacy, deep connection, and arousal. And the author Alina Chamberlain has this incredible phrase for it, a sensory monopoly. I mean, just think about that for a second. It perfectly captures the idea that by using these private touch points over and over, that specific feeling becomes exclusively yours. It's a bond that no one else can replicate.
So that's the theory. But what does this actually look like in real life? Let's break down the first practical technique from the source, which is all about turning everyday moments into something more.
Okay, first up, there's a technique called the grab for happiness. And this one is designed for those little in-between moments. Passing each other in the kitchen, him helping you with your coat. The key here is a bold, playful, and intimate touch. The whole point is to kind of jolt his nervous system out of the ordinary and inject a little bit of spontaneous, erotic fun into the day.
Now here's the part that might surprise you. You might think a surprised or even slightly awkward reaction is a bad sign, but the source says it's actually the opposite. That little jolt of shock or tension, that's what helps lock the anchor in place. It makes the touch totally memorable, and it trains his nervous system to start anticipating your playful, spontaneous side. Okay, so that's the playful, spontaneous side. But what about the quiet moments? Let's look at how this whole idea works, not in moments of action, but in times of shared stillness.
Yeah, think about those quiet times together. You're watching a movie, you're on a long drive, or maybe you're just laying in bed falling asleep. These moments, they offer a totally different kind of opportunity to build these somatic anchors.
So during these quiet times, the source suggests a steady, gentle hand on one of those non-social zones we talked about, like his inner thigh, or the solar plexus, that spot right below the ribcage. It's a very centered, grounding kind of touch.
And what's so powerful about this is that it's not about immediate arousal. It's not foreplay. Instead, it's described as this silent signal of belonging, of possession. It's a way of saying you're mine without ever speaking a word, reinforcing that bond on a really deep subconscious level.
And the effects of this? Well, they're supposed to be pretty profound, both psychologically and biologically. This kind of steady contact creates this constant, low-simmering connection. It builds up oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and it fosters this deep sense of belonging that can start to feel like an actual physical need for him.
All right, last but not least, let's talk about how these special touches can be used to anchor and reward certain behaviors, creating what the author calls a positive reinforcement loop.
So the whole thing starts with a cause. Let's say he does something you really appreciate. Maybe he takes care of all the dishes without being asked, or he just gives you incredible support when you've had a tough day. That's the behavior you want to encourage. Right then, that's your cue. You follow it up immediately with an intimate, rewarding touch, like a firm squeeze of his butt.
The idea is to directly link that helpful thing he just did with a physical, pleasurable reward. And here's the genius of it, according to the theory. His brain starts to connect the dots. He begins to associate being helpful and supportive with pleasure, with that unique sensory reward that only you can give him. He starts doing these things not just because he should, but because he subconsciously craves the reward.
So, let's tie this all together. At its heart, this whole concept of somatic anchoring is about being super intentional with your touch. It's about moving past the generic stuff to create a private language, to build that sensory monopoly we talked about. And you do it by focusing on those non-social zones, weaving these special touches into both fun, playful moments and quiet, intimate ones. And as we just saw, you can even use it to reinforce the behaviors you love.
And that brings us to a really thought-provoking final question. The source describes these as powerful tools for building connection and intimacy, but it definitely makes you think, doesn't it? In this art of influencing desire and behavior, where do you draw the line between deepening a connection and exerting control? Something to think about.
You can find the electronic version of book She Who Awakens by Alina Chamberlain at wishforlove.org.